All right, everyone, welcome to the Mastermind Book Club. We're here. My name is David Diaz. I'm CEO David Diaz with Reggie and Aurelia from our Mastermind Book Club. As we get more members coming in, we're getting ready to review a book that was recommended by one of our members, Tijuana. And this book, although I had read it many years ago, it really grabbed a hold of me now. I don't remember how much I had read the first time, how much I retained. But I guess there's a saying, the more you do things, the more you're able to devour, to understand, and to be able to put into practice. And I think that in this example of listening to this book instead of reading it as I did the first time, I think I got much more out of it. What is the book? It's the money. What is it? Anyone? I forgot the
Total
name.
Money.
Sorry?
The Total Money Makeover.
The Total Money Makeover
Ramsey.
by, I forgot the name.
Ramsey.
Dave Ramsey. Sorry. A little, I guess, out of it today. But this book is very powerful. And I'd like to be able to start, as usual, with our members that are present here in reference to giving us at least one of the important lessons that they learned from this book. So would any of you like to go first?
I could start.
Aurelia, yes.
One of the so one of the things that I really enjoyed learning about in the book was the example about the car, right? Where he said instead of taking out a loan and putting that money in interest and basically putting it to waste, you could put the money away in a jar. And if you save $4,000, okay, you're not going to get the best car, but then you can use your car to get to your job and do everything that you need to do and save again and then get a better car. So again, I really enjoyed that concept because it just shows that we don't get rich overnight. Like it comes with hard work. You have to, everything comes one step at a time.
Very good.
And yeah.
And do you remember what the statistics were about how wealthy people buy cars?
Yeah, actually, just a little. They basically said that they pay it all off completely. They don't even take the interest. So it's realistically the people that take out the loans that end up paying more for the car versus the wealthy, who just paid one shot and they're done.
Now, what you're saying there, I'm an example of pretty much having a car every few years because I used to be a high-end chauffeur. And from back in 99, which I had my first minivan, then I moved to SUVs, and every 2 or 3 years I used to have an SUV. But at the beginning, I used to wait, just like what you just said, and just like Dave Ramsey explained, is that I would never buy new. I bought new once, and it was because I was making so much money that I thought this is the time to buy, and it was the worst purchase I ever made. So Dave Ramsey hit it on the nose this time. I didn't catch this the first time I read this book, and I have this book in my small library. And the reality is that 68% of wealthy people don't buy the latest or newest version of cars. 68%.
Oh yes, I do remember that.
And that was shocking to me. And as a matter of fact, he went on to say that most of these wealthy people purchase at Walmart or similar stores, which is also shocking to me. And, I buy some things at Walmart, but I'm very meticulous on what I buy. And I buy shirts similar to the one I'm wearing for exercises and pants for exercising and maybe a swim shorts, but I wouldn't buy jeans at necessarily at Walmart, but they do have an immense selection that I've never really considered. And jackets I've bought at Walmart. So it's amazing. Even socks and other things. The amount of money that is saved just by saying each and every one of these things is amazing. And another part to what he said is going back to what you said, Aurelia, is that in reality, we want the newest car, but if you don't have the money, why would you get into a debt that's going to take you 5 to 7 years to pay? What do you gain from it? Not much.
Yeah,
And
exactly. I agree. And just going back to your Walmart example, I actually watched a video a long time ago about, it was a guy who was comparing like a Walmart shirt, dress shirt versus a very expensive dress shirt. I don't know if you guys have seen the video, but basically it was a way for him to show that people who can't afford it can still make it to those interviews and, still dress well and still represent themselves. And basically what he did was he went to Walmart and he bought a white shirt, and he also went to a very expensive store and bought a white shirt, and all he did was just get the Walmart white shirt tailored, and you couldn't tell the difference between the two shirts.
unbelievable, except the cost.
Yeah, except the cost.
Man, well, that I've done it. I've had to do that. Really, what you said, and I didn't even remember until you mentioned it. I bought a suit once at a Walmart, and I bought a shirt once when I used to work at Bear Stearns, geez, many years ago, which Reggie would probably remember. I don't know if you remember, Aurelia, but Bear Stearns used to exist, not anymore. It's bankrupt, and I needed suits, and that was one of the places to go. So thank you for sharing, Aurelia. Really appreciate that. Uh,
Yeah,
Reggie,
no problem.
yes, Reggie, what
Yes, sir.
have you picked up from this book?
Quite a bit. I know Dave Ramsey. I'm very familiar with him. He's got a big show, radio show with millions of followers that he does on a probably daily, weekly basis. Written a number of books. He's got some very interesting views beyond money. Some of the people that he follows, I don't really like. Not to say the
Mm.
person, but I'll just say some of those views because he was a big Rush Limbaugh friend.
Oh boy. Okay. Got it.
Ways, he has interesting views, but you always, if you're open-minded and you're aware and you're smart enough or whatever, you can still take what certain persons say, even though they may not say all the stuff that you may go with, or maybe not, even if they kind of keep the company of certain people that you're not necessarily enamored with. You can still take what they have to say and put it to use, because everyone has some value, and he definitely does. And he talks about a lot of things with respect to money. He focuses and stays in a lane of where of that which he knows. So things like Bitcoin and some of these other things he's totally against. But then if you think about it, something like stocks and mutual funds and those things that he talks about, in terms of investing, I mean, a company can go down, right? So,
Yes.
like, it's like you're being one dimensional, but whatever. I'm not going to focus on that aspect. So, there was a line that was repeated throughout the book, and I forget the exact verbiage or the exact way that they phrased it, but it came down to some essentially doing today what no one else does, so later you can do what no one else does, or something along those lines. So basically, with that, it's just basically being disciplined, using your money right, in the right way, starting out on the right foot. Basically, even with, like, if you're a parent with kids, or as you learn as a kid, and they were talking about building credit, and it's like, well, you give them a credit card as a child to build credit, but that's predatory, and that's not necessarily the best thing, because you just learn how to use credit, but then you learn how to use credit poorly, and then you'll see, like, in colleges, how there's like predatory practices with respect to the credit card companies, where they're coming after you and giving you credit, and then these kids get into credit cards, and then they didn't get the proper guidance, and you'll see, and it was a crazy stat, and I don't know when this book was written. It mentioned how like 19% of all bankruptcies were filed by kids in college.
Correct.
So what is that about? Well, it just tells you that the financial tools are not being given to even the very young, and so things like credit may not be for everyone. For certainly in his case, he doesn't believe it's for anyone, but I would say steer clear of that. So basically try to cement some really good discipline so that basically you understand, take your money, save a certain amount in terms of making sure you have money for the rainy day. At the same time, you know, with paying bills, if you have bills, you want to make sure you pay your bills in a proper way. Make sure you don't take on certain debts, like as was mentioned with Aurelia, and you spoke to with the car. Basically, you save a little bit amount of money, a certain amount of money for a car, maybe not the car that you really desire and the most luxury and pristine car, whatever, but it gets you to and fro. You pay for a certain car, you save up a bit more money, then you could trade that car and upgrade to another car, so you're not paying payments, whereby you're stretching out the loan in the case of a lease or something like that over a course of X amount of years. And as he spoke to, I don't know if it was mentioned in his book, I think in his book, it talked about 400 and some odd dollars a month was the average car payment. But in today's, I know like he's spoken to this and I've heard it recently because I've seen him even post because I follow him on Instagram. And he talked about, I think the average car payment is like 500 and something dollars.
It's
And if
much
you were to
higher,
take,
yeah.
I think that's the average though, because you have some cars where people pay 200, 300 and then, you know, 800, 900. So I think the average is in the vicinity of 500, close to six. But if you were to take that same money and put it into like, stock market investing or mutual fund investing or this sort of thing over the period of 30 or so years, you're talking maybe millions of dollars, you know, over time, because you'll eventually, you know, if you even in an S&P or something along those lines, you know, something that follows the tracks S&P or what have you, you're talking about an average gain of about 10, 11, 12% a year, thereabouts. Usually the long-term average is about 10 in the stock market, or 10 plus. So that's basically going to double every 7 years with the rule of 72. So nonetheless, he talks some good stuff because he's really about the quote unquote average individual. And if you take the average individual, we're talking about many people who are very inept when it comes to money, just because they weren't given the right guidance, and so they're apt to do the things that are going to ruin their financial futures and even their financial presence. And even some of us, I mean, we might know certain things, but and we may think we know better. And I was talking to Charles about this a little earlier, but the thing about it, we can always learn and stand to learn from, you know, people like Dave Ramsey, people who are doing this as a daily practice, because it doesn't mean you have to do everything he does. But the thing about it, if you employ some of it, it certainly will work. And then at the same time, you can have other things that that you look into that may fit your, what you're trying to do, because like everything that one person does, nobody has it 100% down. And even Dave Ramsey, as he's spoken to, of course, he kind of switched up, but he years ago when he was young, he twice became bankrupt. So he had his issues as well, but he obviously was able to come around and start to put into practice some better ways in terms of how to manage his money, which got to the place of basically being a very wealthy man at I think to the tune of maybe $300 million. But he also talks about basically, it's okay to be able to take that money and have fun with it or whatever. But at that point, you want to do it when you have the ability to have fun with your money, to the extent of, he's a spender, his wife's a saver. But you can get those cars, you can get those fancy homes, but do it only when it's at the point when you can afford to sort of like take 60, 70, 80, 900, whatever plus thousand and spend it on a car, and it's not going to hurt you because you have so much money coming in. And that's basically like his thing. A few other things I'll speak to, which were highlights or things that stood out to me. He says, basically this idea of debt and credit. He said it's like having a lever that allows you to pick up things that you don't really have the strength to pick up. So that's a very critical statement there. You don't want to necessarily use that stuff, debt, credit, or whatever, in the way that many people do it, because you're able to fund, per se, with OPM, other people's money, the purchase of something like a TV, like some clothing or whatever, with this lever, which gives you additional financial strength or pseudo strength. But really, you don't have the strength to pick it up because you don't have the money within your own person to basically be able to pay for that thing, to pay it off, to not incur additional financial charges and such over a period of time, where that same purchase you made is going to cost you 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and however many times. And ultimately, you may actually put so much financial strain on yourself and put yourself in a situation which will put you in a financial hole. So you got to be very careful of that. There were some other things as well, as he talked about, Let me see, one of a couple other things. Oh, it was a very interesting thing. We talked about Sears. Now we know Sears, the company Sears, is going out. I don't actually know they still exist, but they've had many issues over the course of time, and they've filed for bankruptcy, come out, filed, come out. I think they might be fully liquidated at this point. But it was funny because he said Sears had become essentially a company that was basically making more money on financing. I guess with
Discover card.
yeah, but they were making more.
Discover. They're the big backing behind Discover card.
Yeah, no, that's fine. But with the point that I was making, which was funny, the way that they worded it, was that Sears was, making more money on their financing, that he said it became a financier with stuff out front or something like that. It was the funny way to term it. So essentially, like, it was not even so much about them selling goods. It was as if like the goods that they were selling, which they were putting out there for them to sell, was just sort of like a yard sale almost. Like, here we have this stuff, but they're really making money on the credit, on servicing credit. So that was just funny how it was phrased. I mean, some of those were like some very important things that I picked up. I mean, I'm sure there was definitely some others. I'm trying to look for one other thing, because a couple of things that I said, I think were very critical. The thing about the lever is allow you to pick up things that you don't really have the strength for. Making sure one other thing that he said, which I thought was very just the wording of it, and just in terms of your financial journey and the way he worded it, and this could be any journey, but just as it relates to finances, he said that there is no shortcut to places that you really want to end up going. Mm-hmm. So with respect to money, building, growing, whatever, is not about that shortcut. Right. So you have to put in the time, you have to do the crunches, you have to pick up and do the work, you have to go and do the arduous journey or whatever. There's no shortcut. You're going to get there, but you have to put in the work. You have to do the process. You have to keep pounding the pavement. Right. So that's a critical statement right there. And that could go for anything. So that's the thing. You can take this book and look at it from a financial standpoint. And of course it is that, right? But just some of those practices that will set you up financially, just in terms of the discipline, not necessarily getting these things today and waiting for those things in the future by being smart in the current. Could be for anything, doing your work in the current, going to work, going to school, whatever, just making sure you do the things that are necessary today so that you can have what other people can't have tomorrow. That statement, right? And also it brings me to a statement of, work hard today. So if you do the things that are hard today, you'll be able to, I forget, it's something along the lines of, if you do what's hard today, you'll be able to live tomorrow. I'm not saying it the right way, but it's this idea of working hard today so that tomorrow is easy. If you do the things today that are hard, later will be easy. And if you do the things today that are easy, later life will be hard. So this is something with this financial journey. If you're doing these things that may seemingly be hard and delaying the gratification, which many of us tend to get the gratification now, because the current doesn't always point to the future, what the future can be. So we look for the pleasures in the now, and then we get the pleasures in the now. We think it's pleasure, but it's ultimately demise, because when we look at ourselves down the road, as he talked about, even with respect to, I don't want to be the guy who's older working at McDonald's. He said, I want to be the guy who's owning the McDonald's. Now, I don't want to own a McDonald's necessarily because it's killer food, but I get the concept, because I don't want to be a part of killing people. I don't eat that way, but I understand the concept of what he's saying, right? So if you do those things that are the proper now, and then one last statement I'll say, because I don't want to belabor and I'm kind of being long, is that you could pick up at any point. So even as with, we might not have done these things, or we've made our mistakes or whatever, you can turn it around if you just decide. And you can actually completely make over your own life. Let's just talk about a financial makeover. You can make that over. You can make up that ground. You can change. I mean, not in the same way, like where you put a certain amount in the stock market over time, dollar cost of investing, whatever, and you'll get to a certain number in 30 whatever years. Maybe you don't have that, but you can still financially improve your life dramatically in a short period of time if you get disciplined now and start doing these practices, so that within 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years, you can see yourself in a completely different state, doing the things exactly you want to do, having the kind of money you need to have in your accounts, and so on and so forth. and being able to live the life that you want to be able to live, because it really doesn't, it doesn't necessarily take as much as we think, but we just have to be willing to make the effort and do the things that are necessary that are going to allow us to make over our lives and be able to get ourselves down the path that we want to get, so we can have the monies and the things that we wish to have in our lives at the time that we want to have them. So that's the short of it. I mean, I kind of went on, but just making some statements. Hopefully that helped. And, just put that in your pocket and run with it.
Very good, Reggie. Very good. Thank you for sharing. And it
I kind of, oh, sorry.
yep, it
Hi,
leads.
everybody.
Hi, Ty. Hold on one second. Reggie, what you just said is very, very powerful. And it leads into a second part that I'm going to say, and it supports exactly what you just said. But what I'm going to say adds to what you just said, so that you gave a great intro when I get to speak. But Ty, go ahead. Your turn, Ty. Welcome, Ty.
Hey, hi, everybody.
Hey. Thank you for recommending this book, by the way, Ty. That's what we said at the beginning.
Thank you.
So,
Actually, what I got, it was a few things. I was thinking about how he was saying, like, because at one point in time, I did get into a debt consolidation program, and I started paying these people, and they wanted like $250 or something like that. But I did kind of feel like I wasn't, like, everything that that Dave Ramsey had that he explained, I kind of felt that with the program. So that's one of the reasons why I kind of felt like connected to the book. And then too, what I also got was like when he was saying with the extra money, and he also pointed to paying yourself first. And you give yourself first a certain percentage out of whatever money that you get. You always pay yourself first. And it was a conflict for me because I was raised a little differently, as far as with my family. My mom and everybody always paid the bills first, and then whatever was left, it kind of went towards either like groceries, or like maybe clothes for school shopping. But how it, like, what I thought about was, it's like, I'm definitely interested in, and now I'm working on, like, now that it's a new month, it's the beginning of the month. So I'm gonna learn to, just because it balances out, like to pay myself first. It kind of makes sense, even though it didn't make sense at first, because even Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki said that the same thing, pay yourself first. And I kind of had to have it beat into my head a little bit in order to understand that that's where it balances out, when you pay yourself first. So thanks, guys. Thank you.
awesome,
That's it.
Ty. Again, thank you for recommending this book. And I hope you hear to the first part, because Aurelia and Reggie said very powerful stuff when you get a chance, which is very important, what Aurelia and Reggie said. I don't know how much you caught it from Reggie, but Aurelia said good stuff. Charles.
Hey, good evening, everybody.
Good
Happy
evening.
birthday, David.
Hey,
Hope you had
thank
a
you.
great day yesterday.
Yeah, I feel, young, 21.
There we go.
Plus 29, plus 29.
Okay.
So 50, halfway. I got
That's awesome.
150 years to go.
Praise him. Praise him. That's a good one.
Yes.
I hope to be right there with you.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
just like we spoke a few days ago, and we're here. We're here to
Yes,
serve.
yes.
And I've got to call Ty and Reg and probably Aurelia, but we'll see when we get there. Charles, what did you learn from this book, or what did you gather from this book?
Oh man, this was a very interesting book.
Right?
I got into this actually many, many years ago. Like Ty, a long, long time ago. I was just facing some economic downtrends in my life, and spending too much. And I really started looking into T. Harv Eker. I've heard of this guy. Susie Orman is another lady that I admire a lot. He's on the same vein as her. Just a couple quick things that I'm a follow up on. I think Reggie was talking about Sears and Roebuck. So what they saw was a lot of people was using the layaway program. this talking about Sears and Roebuck, and they would put stuff on layaway and they put a few dollars down, and then they find that the people will forget about the money and then come and do the same thing over and over again. And that was one of the ways that that store got to be really a big store. And I believe it was eventually a bank located in Chicago. So like Reggie was saying, it was a front with the items and goods and services that they were putting first, but really they built Sears' Discover. So if you have a Discover card in your pocket, you have Sears. And they bought Roebuck out a long time ago, which was an African-American guy, but that's another story. But just paying yourself work first, like Ty was talking about, is one of the good things. Live the life, you live the life today so you can live the life you want tomorrow. It's sort of the saying that they were talking about in the book. So do your sacrifice. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yep,
Okay.
yep.
Yeah, live the sacrifices you want today so you can enjoy life the way you want it tomorrow. And knocking out list everything down, have a budget, which that's something that I don't always do, but I do always check my numbers. At least every 10 days, I check my financial numbers to see where I am. And that's something that I got from the book. Stay away from leasing, because at one point in time, I wanted to get a house, and I said, well, I'm going to lease to own. I have enough money to put down for the lease, and I have enough money to put towards, I guess, buying the house. But that's just a trap. And he mentioned many trap leasing. He mentioned leasing furniture, like Rent-A-Center and these other pay-as-you-go places, the rock lots. Just if you don't have the cash to buy it outright, don't buy it. Pretty much is what I got from the book. And he was saying, as Ty was saying, pay yourself first, but list all your debts, pay the least amount of debt first, and just keep paying it. Don't get caught, like spending more money than you actually have. And what was some of the other things? This was the first time I actually didn't have a chance to write down a lot of notes. So I'm literally trying to go off the top of my head. But
That's fine, but you're saying good stuff anyhow. So.
There were so many great points to what this guy was talking about, and some of them are eluding me right now. But it's an awesome book. I highly recommend it. You go and listen to it again if you haven't. If you haven't already. But the book was amazing. You just need to figure out where you are financially.
Yes.
And start to make a difference. Oh, insurance. That was like old people growing up with an older generation. I'm a little older than you, David, almost 60. I remember my parents really believing in insurance. And just a quick story, the man would come by every week and he would collect $2 or $3 towards insurance. And every week, this was back, I guess, in the when I was a kid. So we're looking at the early 60s, but I'm sure this went on from like the 30s, 40s, and 50s. But this guy would come around and he would collect $2 or $3, every week or every 2 weeks from the people for insurance. And they would sell you a plot. The plot would be, let's say, $1,000 or $100. And what happened was that as the people got older, they had these paid up policies, but they were paid up not worth anything. They weren't even worth the face value that they paid them to, because there was all kinds of stipulations. So buy term, invest the difference was something I learned about early in life, and that there's so many different ways you can kind of like, I guess, save your money, like put money away to actually save for something. Once again, cash is boss. If you don't have the money to pay for it outright, then you really can't afford it. What was the other thing I was going to mention real quick? Oh man, I'm just drawing a blank here. But
It's
Cash is
fine.
boss. Yeah, Cash is boss. What else he was talking about? It was one key point that I really wanted to bring out. Live the life that you want. Live the life you live today, so you can live the life you want tomorrow. Is savings. You gotta. Oh, I love that part about the savings where you should always have $1,000 in your pocket, and that you should, even if you have to sell something in your house, sell, I guess, clothes or this stuff that's just laying around that's
You
not
know,
really.
you know me, Charles. I've even spoke. You know that whole money in the
Yes,
pocket. You know,
yes. So a lot of us have a fortune in our basement or in our attic, and to get ahead, to start investing, we should go and look for these things and cash these things in. And I'm just going to stop right there, but there are some other points that hopefully will come back to me
It's
before
all
we
good, Charles.
sign
I
off.
mean, you've done great
Normally I have it
to this
written
point.
out.
I usually
No
just
notes
ask,
tonight.
you know me, I usually just ask for one thing, and you guys are
Yeah,
all knocking
yeah,
it
but
out the
I
park.
really loved. It was a great
This
refresher.
is Ty. This is very good book, and you can hear from everyone passion about this book. And I'm going to add to that passion with 7 baby steps that Dave Ramsey mentions. I'm going to share my screen here, if you give me a moment. And these 7 baby steps, I'm going to ask you questions, each of you. I'm going to ask you one particular question that is very, very important. Okay, so let's see, once we share the screen, let me know if it's, can you see that? Can you see? Good. All right. So baby step number 1, as Charles just mentioned, save $1,000. When you received your last check, did you save 10% of your last check? I don't need to know the answer. Just answer it in your own head. Yes or no. Did you save 10% of whatever amount of money you received? 10%, 20%? How about 20%? How about 30%? These are very important questions, right? You've got to answer these. Maybe write them down if you want to. This is baby step number 1, recommended by Dave Ramsey's, okay? Number 2, let's see if I can share. Whoops, I got to share again. Geez, sorry. I thought I had this easily done here, but it's asking me to share again. Baby step number 2, right? Pay off all your debt, except the house, using the debt snowball. Now, I have debt. We're in November right now. About 8 months ago, I had 0 debt. I had almost the highest credit score you could have. And all of a sudden, I was offered, bam, a loan, an SBA loan, which has the most minimal amount of interest, and I took it. And I was offered another loan with a very small interest rate, but it was just an intro, and I didn't read the fine line, and I'm stuck paying it. And then I didn't max out my credit card, but it's pretty high, right? Now, I know how to pay debt, and I know you know how to pay debt, but are you checking it on a daily basis? Are you stopping the purchases that you want to make today and leaving it for tomorrow? And then tomorrow when you check, are you leaving it for the next day? And then the next day when you check, are you leaving it for the next day? Stop making these purchases, right? Maybe you made 3 purchases today. Stop tomorrow. No purchases. No purchases for a week. No purchases for 10 days. You've got to do the sacrifice. It's hard, but it's not difficult. It's hard, but it's not difficult. When are you going to make that choice? You've got to check your debt on a daily basis. I checked it today. I checked it yesterday. Did you check it yesterday? Did you check it today? All right. It's a reality. Let's see again. I got to share again. Hold on. Number 3. Oh, wish I would have thought about this a little bit better, but I hope you're getting the point here. Baby step 3, Save 3 to 6 months of expenses in fully funded emergency fund. Now, Dave Ramsey's in step 1 recommends saving $1,000. I highly recommend 5,000. From when he said this, minimal 5,000 is what 1,000 used to be equivalent. Minimum. I know it sounds like much more because even today, did you know that most people don't even have $1,000 saved? They're living on debt, transferred to debt, and then paying off. So if you want to live a better life, then you've got to put that 10 to 30% at least on a weekly basis or bi-weekly, however you get paid, just set it aside. Like if you're paying yourself, paying yourself. Like you're not receiving this as to pay others, just pay yourself. That's what I did. That's why I got into debt. It's not because I couldn't afford it. It's because I was paying myself all this time. How am I paying myself? I'm building real estate. Reggie knows the most about it. And he even told me something very important, that most people want to get into real estate, but don't actually get started. And I've already gotten started. I'm building a 30 apartment complex in Dominican Republic next to a river with a pool and with security and maintenance included and so on. And I'm building an extra house for myself eventually. Now, am I doing this overnight? No, I'm doing this little by little, not getting into debt, not taking out loans. So as I was reading this book, I was like, wow, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing because I'm taking my time to do this. You can do this, and I can assist you on how to do this if you open your heart to either me or to maybe one of the other people here. We all can assist each other. It's just that we usually forget that we have that assistance. There's one important word that most religions of the world say is ask. If you don't ask, you'll never receive. Don't forget to ask. Ask. I don't care what religion you're part of. What I do care is that you're part of a religion and to remember to apply the important and powerful words in your religion. Ask. And the next one here, let's see again. Sorry, you're going to see my face every time. Whoops, pressed the wrong one. Let's try this again. Number 4. We're almost done here, by the way. And number 4. Invest 15% of your household income in retirement. How do you do that? You can do it in the stock market. You can do it in crypto. You can do it in real estate. You can maybe buy a used car and resell it. There are many ways. There are many ways. I think Charles used to do that, right? Charles used to buy cars and resell them. Is that right?
Yeah, I still do that.
Okay, and it's not gonna make you a millionaire, but it pays to know what you're doing, right? Good. He's nodding his head, but we'll take that as a yes, and I won't torture him. Invest 15% of your household income in retirement. So, Ty, I'll get back to you in a moment. And the big question is, as you see this year, retirement. When are you planning to retire? And I've said it in this class before, is I don't plan to retire. I plan to live 150 years more. I'm already at 50. I plan to live 150 years more. Now, is there a secret to living this long? Yeah, you gotta have lots of money. Lots of money. I mean, that's the bottom line. As you can see, men and women are getting operated to look younger and younger, right? But if you take care of yourself, maybe you don't need to get operated. Maybe you don't need to have certain things done. Maybe you do need to have it done. It's up to you. It's up to you. Number 5 of 7. Hold on. Number 5 is save for your children's college fund. This is the thing with what Dave Ramsey said. He confused everyone as they're reading this, but the reality is, if you are willing to search for it, you don't have to pay for your children's college. If you're willing to take the time to invest in it, you don't have to pay for it. Why would you save for your children's college fund? Why would you invest in a 529 college plan? This is all bogus. You don't need to do this. Invest it elsewhere and maybe transfer it if you need to at the end, but don't go into this 529 college plan. I used to be a life insurance. I still am licensed. I don't sell it. I don't believe in the method. There are other people who believe in it, who have, but with all the reading that we've done in this program and research that I've done elsewhere, it's like term life is for me. Term life. I used to have life insurance and I saw how I was getting ripped off because I never saw the savings. It's a ripoff. It's a ripoff. It's hard to see what you're putting in there because the first 8 years of money that you're putting into a life insurance, guess who gets the money? The company does. You don't get any of it. The company, until they're fully funded, you're not fully funded. And I know it sounds crazy, but that's the reality. Number 6, let's see, number 6 here. So if you need to advise on insurance, I recommend the term. And if you need to know how it works, send me a message. Talk to me. I know how it works. I know how it works. Believe me, I've done many insurance plans and I know what the benefit is. Pay off your home early. Now, obviously, if you get into a house, you should pay off your house early. People are told, oh, just hang on to the debt. Yeah, hang on to a 8 to 10% interest house. I think, I don't know what it is, but maybe it's 4 to 5%. Don't hang on to these interests. Pay it off. Pay it off early. The sooner you pay it off, the better. As a matter of fact, if you can only afford an $80,000 home and you can't find it, then maybe get an $80,000 apartment. Because once you pay for it, you can rent it out and you can pay for something bigger. All right. Remember, if you get into a big house that costs $500,000 and you're unable to make ends meet, that's called a liability. It's not an asset. And that's what Robert Kiyosaki has implanted in here, as well as that Robert Kiyosaki likes to use debt for leverage. Now, most people don't know how to use debt for leverage. I am using debt for leverage. However, people don't understand how I'm using it. So I'm not going to explain it to that. That's for another session. And number seven in the baby steps that Dave Ramsey recommends is, let's see here, build wealth and give. Build wealth and give. If you can have $18 million by the time you retire, I don't plan to retire. So I plan to have much more than that. I will to have much more than that. But the reality is most people want to retire. Most people might want to give. So how do you do this? You can only do this by saving. If you learn to manage small amounts of money, then eventually bigger amounts of money will work their way into your hands. And that's the reality. So instead of getting into more and more debt, why don't you make a plan? I know that people, even Dave Ramsey recommends people to get into debt consolidation. No, don't do it. If you need advice, talk to me. If you need advice, talk to me. Why do I say me? Because I know I can give you the right advice in reference to that. And because I've been through it. I know what it is. I haven't been through debt consolidation. There's better ways than debt consolidation. You might as well do it right. Dave Ramsey mentions it. Unfortunately, he mentions it between the lines. You might have caught what he said. You might not have caught what he said. And I'm not going to give it away here. I recommend you sending me an email or contacting me, and I can tell you exactly what you need to do, because this is how the best communities in the world get ahead. And I'm not going to mention that either, just like that, because for privacy reasons, I don't want to get involved in any political or emotional trauma having to deal with some community coming after me. So this is it for the review of the 7 steps. And the reality is I've purchased many cars. The only car I purchased new was in 2002. And in 2003, I filed for bankruptcy. Crazy, but that's a reality. I did invest some of the money, but then it just went so fast that I spent everything else. And it was like, oh my God, what did I do? And that was it. That was it. Now, I just want to thank again Ty for recommending this book. This book has hit the spot. It goes hand in hand with T. Harv Eker, The Millionaire Mindset. And as well as I put into practice one other thing that we learned from another book, and I just don't remember which book, but it was like 2 books ago. I've been trying to, I am meditating 3 to 5 times a week for 10 to 20 minutes. And it really works. Just don't do it in your bed. Don't do it where you're accustomed to sitting. Do it somewhere different. Maybe in your car, maybe in a specific and special chair. You can find a place wherever it is. And yes, at the beginning, you might nod off because it's happening to me, but I feel I'm going the right path, because if you're nodding off just your head, you're going in the right path. So Dave Ramsey's, what he says here is true. It is powerful. And once you learn these 7 baby steps, or the steps that you were focusing on, then you could take it to the next level. Any questions from anyone?
Just
Ty,
remember, remember that what is it? The lender is the borrower is servant to the lender.
Yes.
The borrower is servant to the lender.
Correct.
Don't lend your family any money either.
Make sure we're always on the lending end opposed to being the borrowers.
Exactly.
So
I'm learning, guys. I'm learning.
I have lent money to my family and very close friends.
And just make sure you know
all of
that
them have not paid me back. No.
Yeah, the book says you
But
change
no,
the
you're not gonna
dynamic of
get
your
it back.
relationship when you
So what
lend your family money.
What
or
I've
your
done is
friends.
I just said, so and
Just
so.
treat them as a loan. Like just like how when I lost like 7,000 last year, and I was like, oh my God, I was so devastated. And then I had to look at it to not like self bash. I had to look at that like like one of the biggest gifts I ever gave in my life. And I had to keep telling myself that, to not beat myself up, because of how it happened. So it's just as a psych mechanism for self, but I appreciate you guys.
Thank you, Ty. And I just want to reiterate that I didn't get paid any of the loans. And I just said, so and so, I forgive you. Keep the money.
To save yourself from the grief, right?
And
from hurting.
That's it. I mean, what can I do? I can't do much. I didn't tell these people that. If they pay me, great. If they don't pay me, they're the ones that look, unfortunately,
but Dave,
in an uncomfortable position.
My dad,
don't co-sign for anybody.
My dad
never co-sign.
Nope.
Right. And my dad always said that's how much it costs you to get that grief out of your life. That's how my dad always said it. He always said things in cliches. So however much those people owed you, that's how much they paid, or you gave them to give you that space out of your life.
All I can tell you is I made a contribution, and I know that God will return it multiplied, or infinite intelligence and so on will return it multiplied. And I believe it's happening. It's continuously happening. And why think differently? So if you did it, you did it. Great. I loaned once a woman $35,000, and it took several years to get it back. When I got it back, she passed away within the year. I guess she couldn't die without giving back the money. And I appreciate that. I'm very thankful. And, when you lose money like that, that would be horrible. But this is it for another episode. Next week, we have one of 2 books that I'd like to go into, but I haven't found that other book. So I'm going to ask Reggie, because I know Reggie has resources. Who else has resources on getting these audio books? Because I haven't found it on YouTube, but it's very, very powerful book. hold on. Let me just end this session so that I can mention the book offline. I don't want people getting ahead of us. Everyone, this is the Mastermind Book Club, and this is our review, our summary of Dave Ramsey's The Money Makeover. Until next week, take care.